Certainly people with darker skin can get skin cancer, and I've treated many of these over the years. However, it is rarer simply because darker skin types don't burn as easily. And fair skin, people who tend to burn easily, are certainly at a higher risk. The sun is certainly a big risk factor for skin cancer. So episodes of burning, as well as accumulation of sun exposure over many years, will increase the risk. But it's one factor, it's not the only factor. As I mentioned, the patient's skin type is another very important risk factor. Family history is another risk factor, amongst others. Well, sun damage can occur whenever there's sun, even when it's colder. So it's all about the UV exposure rather than temperature per se. A good example of this is when people go skiing. It may not be very hot, but there is quite a lot of sun exposure, often at altitude, with reflections off the snow as well, which illustrates the point. Yes, I mean, higher SPF will tend to be better in terms of protection. The most important point about sunscreens is that they must be reapplied. People often forget to reapply regularly, and it will come off with sweat, for example, and just applying it once in the morning will not be enough to protect you throughout the day. Sun exposure is important for vitamin D production. However, not much sun exposure is actually needed for vitamin D production. It's very important not to burn or make the skin go red. So exposure time before that happens is enough. That might be 10 to 15 minutes a day between April and September. For darker skin types, that may require a longer period of time. But if there is a concern about skin cancer risk, then maybe supplementation is required rather than relying on sun exposure for vitamin D production.